DeSanto Propane is 4 generations strong as a trustworthy family-owned business with unmatched customer service. Go online at DeSantoPropane.com for more info or call toll-free at 1-800-752-4574. Since 1937, the difference has been DeSanto Propane.
All right, everybody, welcome into Concrete Jungle, New York baseball podcast here on FingerLakes1.com. Paul Russo and Kyle Evans here with you. This is going to be, I feel like, a little bit of what we've been talking about for a while here, just with different footnotes. We're going to start with the Mets this week, but, instead of maybe a 500 week, it's a sub 500 week for the Yankees. Start off on the right foot. I said to you, like, right before we went on the air, Kyle, and we'll get to it obviously when we get to the Yankees, but, like, I don't know, maybe I'm letting the weekend maybe sour a little bit too much for them overall, but still just one of those weeks for the Yankees where it's tough to really complain. They get another game in the division standings, so it's like, okay, well, stuff could be worse, but we'll jump right into it here. Start with the Mets, like I mentioned, and just a sub 500 week. They lose in pretty rough fashion in Cincinnati overall. Just boat race 12-0 on Monday, lose a tight one on Tuesday. They win big on Wednesday, but I think a lot of whatever maybe positivity you could gain from that, if any, gets taken away pretty quick in Philadelphia. Sure, they win the game on Thursday, off day on Friday because of the World Cup in Philadelphia and the complex down there. Everything's right close by. And then over the weekend, just frankly, embarrassing baseball by the Mets. I think obviously Saturday is going to be the main low light there for them. But look, I mean, yesterday on Sunday, it's sure you go from losing 15-3 to 6-2, but like, I don't know, man. I'm gonna try and not again just beat this dead horse, but like, I just don't know where we go from here with them at this point. When you look around the division, the league, everything overall with them at this point. And we'll get into a couple things here in just a second for injuries and guys coming back and stuff like that. But like, I'm sorry. I don't know if Lindor is going to make a difference at this point, right? I don't know if Ronny Mauricio is going to make a difference at this point. It was another embarrassing week of Mets baseball this past week.
Yeah, the team definitely doesn't believe in any momentum. Just for example, that Sunday, an 8-1 win over the Braves, a good win against a team that's been rolling. I mean, maybe cooled off a little bit lately, but overall, the Braves have been one of the best teams in baseball. And then you follow that up. I mean, you're down, I think it was 8-0 in the first inning after the Suarez grand slam in Cincinnati. And it's like, come on, this is how you come out to start a road trip. And then they followed up again with another loss. And it's just like, man, like every time they, win two, they lose two. That's literally what they did last week. Beat the Cardinals and Braves back-to-back games. It's tough to ever think they're really going to get going based on how they continue to play. And then when you look at their schedule, I mean, the Phillies series, in my opinion, started one of the tougher stretches of the season in terms of opponents. I mean, they have the Phillies again this coming weekend, actually. And then you look and you got a couple AL East team and then the Braves again. So it doesn't seem like if they can't even win some of these games against teams under 500, just like they are, that how are they ever going to get going? I mean, there's no winning weeks. You go through every week and it's either at best a 500 week, but normally under 500, you're gaining no ground.
Yeah, that, doing that look ahead at the schedule, I think is fair because, and we'll obviously talk about this week in a couple moments, but right, you're home, but like you have a Cubs team that maybe not as good as like Atlanta in that sense, right? But like still one of the better teams. They definitely probably came back to their average more or less, but it's a good team that you start this week off with for 4 games. And like you said, right, it's Philly, Then you're on the road in Toronto and Atlanta to start July, and then going into the All-Star break, home against Kansas City, and your breather spot might be this home against Boston, but that's right before the All-Star break. So I, it's tough, I think, at this point to get excited, right? If you're looking at it from the angle of a Mets fan, in the sense of like, where can they get anything going? And I just, unfortunately, I view it from 1 to 2.5 weeks, 1 to 3.5 weeks out, rather, apologies, where it's just like, or no, it is 2 weeks out, 2.5 weeks out, where it's just like Boston's your stopgap, and that's before you're off anyway for 3 days. Like, I don't know, man. Like we talked about last week, we talked about it a ton, but like, I go back to what I talked about last week specifically here for a second, though. Like, your decision as a front office might have been made this past week of what you're doing now, going into July and the trade deadline, right? And the part that sucks maybe here if you're the Mets is maybe one of your bigger, if not the biggest trade chip you have right now in Freddie Peralta, who frankly has struggled by his standards this year, had his worst outing of the year this past week. So, like, what, like, I don't even know what you could, mind you, would pay for Peralta. Let's not get it twisted, but like, it's like, I'm going to use an NBA term here because both of us are sitting here, honestly, having our phones out waiting for a certain notification anyway. Um, but like, mind you, they're not the same level, but it's like, what are you willing to give up for Giannis Antetokounmpo, who's early 30s with two major lower leg injuries, right? Where Milwaukee wants a, frankly, king's ransom for him. Like, if you're a buying team and you're looking at Freddie Peralta, like, why would you want to give up a king's ransom for him when he just hasn't performed like that this year? Like, the Mets will obviously have to try and sell it as that, but like, I don't even know how you do it with him at this point, right? Like, the Mets are going to be in a really difficult spot. And I'm not saying that maybe that decision still can't be made within the next week plus here, but like last week, if it were me, I think last week made my decision for me.
Yeah, I actually just looked back, because we sit here every Monday to do this podcast, and I figured I'd go and look. And the funny thing is, June 8th, 2 Mondays ago, the Mets were 5 games out of a wild card. Last week we sat here, they were 5.5. This Monday, 3 weeks later, we sit here and they're 6 games out of a wild card. They're actually going backwards.
Mm.
So, I mean, I think we're getting closer, obviously to July and the stretch that they have coming up. And then I just looked after the All-Star break at the stretch that they have. And man, I think we're really going to find out, faster than I thought. This team is probably going to be, I would think big sellers. Like I heard this morning, Joel Sherman mentioned Luke Weaver now possibly on the trade block because the reliever market's so thin and he's been so good since May 1st. And has been really good in the last couple seasons, even with the Yankees. So, yeah, I mean, I think this team could certainly get torn down a little bit. Not, major all like you're not going to see probably like a crazy trade, but Peralta, I think is definitely probably going to be out and traded.
Yeah. And it's interesting because you mentioned that, and when we're doing the podcast, right? I'm in the MLB app and everything, just kind of looking at stuff, and I think this is maybe a really good turning point to talk about some of these guys coming back from injury, right? The top headline on the Mets page right now is Lindor's upcoming return at crucial inflection point for the Mets. And, um, sounds like it might be Wednesday when he's back at this point. I don't know officially, but that kind of seems to be the trend right now. But like, I'm sorry, and I like Lindor, and it, it's not a knock on whatever here, but like, again, the way he started off the year before he got hurt, what's the hope there? Like I said, it's not a knock on him or anything, but like, cool. Say, look at it from this perspective, right? Say he can get, to playing at like what Juan Soto is batting at right now, right? 301. And obviously for Lindor, that wouldn't be the case because he couldn't get there with his current average. But like, let's say that's the pace he's able to get going at, right? You still have a lot of other holes to worry about. And I get that maybe it's viewed from like a leadership perspective or something like that. But like you can only do so much even at that point. So like it's one of those things to me where it's like, cool, Lindor's coming back. But like you said, Kyle, it might just be kind of like one of those sense of just like 2 weeks too late when you probably needed it most. And look, it's not like you can't control the speed of health, but like it's one of those things where it's like if you only the injury wasn't graded as bad as it was or something like that. It's just like one of those things where it's like could have really used them coming off that Atlanta series or back on June 8th when you had the wheels pointed in the right direction at the time.
Yeah, that's the thing. They've buried themselves so deep that there's no margin for error. And, if they had played well against some of these teams that are literally in front of them, I mean, the Diamondbacks being one team that they just couldn't beat in the two series that they've had. I mean, the Reds, I mean, you can go on and on. This stretch, you would be like, all right, well, maybe they can somehow manage it and, not make it so horrible and it wouldn't kill them. But this is what they've done. They've dug themselves into a hole where every single week, if it's not a winning week, it's a failure. And I just proved in the last 3 weeks, they have not had a winning week. So they've actually gone backwards in the standings. So again, a couple more weeks of these stretches, they're literally going to be like basically finished to the point where, yeah, like the main focus is selling. Like that's what's going to be talked about with the team.
Yeah, so on the topic of Lindor, he had a rehab assignment with Syracuse yesterday. Him and Tyrone Taylor have kind of been working through this rehab stuff together in the sense of where the Mets have been sending them. Um, they were both in Binghamton and then in Syracuse yesterday, like I mentioned. I'm gonna dip the toe here a little bit in the minor league stuff immediately here, Kyle, inadvertently potentially. Um, Ronny Mauricio also on rehab assignment right now with Syracuse. I actually saw him in person Saturday at Syracuse, went up to the game there. Um, Looked pretty good. I mean, I wouldn't say there wasn't any maybe signs of rust or anything like that. I definitely think there was, but he looked pretty solid at the plate. Did get pulled late in the game. It ended up being a tight game where Syracuse was down 10-5 at one point to Norfolk. Came storming back and won 11-10 in the ninth. So one of those things where I don't know, probably just one of those things where he got to his limit of reps that he needed or something like that. But um, again, like now knock on Tyrone Taylor here because I view it more from the prism of Lindor and Mauricio, obviously. But like, I don't know what these three guys or main two guys, again, like we mentioned, are going to fully do here. So, yeah, man, it's just one of those things where now looking into maybe the week that is coming up, hardcore here, right? It's you have Kodai Senga going tonight against Shota, and it's like, oh my, it's tough to really get excited. I think about a Senga game at this point, just because of how these games he's been back from the IL have gone. Tomorrow, get excited, right? Tuesday, Nolan McLean going against Edward Cabrera, and then Wednesday against the Cubs, Javier Assad and Sean Manaea, and see Thursday. Do they have Thursday out yet? Yeah, Freddie Peralta, but you're not sure about who the Cubs got. So, I mean, again, like I always say this about 4 game sets too. Like I just view it from the prism of like you're not winning all 4. You're more than likely to go 2-2 than 4-0. But like I can't even say that. Like I view this as like the Mets probably do get a game against the Cubs, but like what what confidence do I have in them to do anything more than that? And it's none. And again against the Phillies this weekend, what confidence do I have against them? Like virtually none. Like I'm anticipating when we sit down again next Monday, it's just going to be, oh, the Mets went 2-4 again in the past 6 games, or in this case, 7 games. So 2-5. And, like, here we go. Like, time to officially make decisions. So I don't know. It sucks that I think I'm at that point just officially, and that's just going to be my thing until I get proven otherwise with them. But here we are.
Yeah, I definitely think it's going to be a bad week. I'll go 2-5. Yeah, I mean, it's gonna be another bad homestand, but at least you look on their website and they have all these giveaways every night. Maybe everyone will want to come out still pay
Yeah.
money to watch this product.
Zach Lowe doing the first pitch, I think, NBA Insider, one of these games. So maybe he can break the Giannis trade as he's throwing out the first pitch. Yeah, let's get over to the Yankee side here. Yeah, week started off great for them last week, right? They get a series win against the White Sox. Bats were pretty well alive there. Solid start against the Reds on Friday night, and then the weekend gets pretty sour pretty quick Saturday, and then yesterday on Sunday. Um, yeah, it's weird because for us, right, on this podcast specifically, like we had the Reds twice in our look ahead last week, and you know, they're like I said, they're a pretty plucky team in terms of offense, and pitching wise, there's stuff there, but like the bullpen gets it's frayed and everything like that. But they stepped up when they needed to against the Yankees, and like the Yankees, and what we can get into this a little bit more, maybe too, Kyle, in the theorized stuff, but the Yankees did themselves no favors, especially to me. It gets highlighted yesterday. Um, the the graded base knock up the middle, and all of a sudden it turns into, I don't know, the notification I got bad news Bears, Little League, whatever you want to call it, right? Tyler Stevenson ends up on third somehow. Just stuff that we've kind of have seen with this team over the course of the past couple of years, and I don't know, that one might be the icing on the cake for it all, but yeah, I don't know if I'm maybe allowing the weekend to sour too much, but like the Yankees had a 500 week. When they looked good, they looked really good this past week. When they looked bad, they looked really bad, obviously. And somehow through it all, they gained a game though on Tampa Bay in the AL East standings. So it's one of those like really tough ones where it's just like, yeah, I probably have to be critical to a degree, but also like probably could have been a worse week, all things considered.
Yeah, I think the last two games against the Reds were simply the fact their offense. I mean, 0 for 22 with runners in scoring position with 18 men left on base in those two games combined. They had their opportunities early. They did take a 1-0 lead on Sunday on the Paul Goldschmidt homer.
Mm-hmm.
But it just seemed like if they would have capitalized on those early opportunities, different relievers and stuff would have been used in the game. I mean, for example, Ryan Yarbrough pitched in that Saturday game, give up four, is definitely his worst outing of the year. Jake Bird's been pitching a lot, and Jake Bird has not been good, which is why he's been sent down. Camilo Duvall, continues to. I don't know how he's bad with the way he throws. So just certain situations in the game, I just think that any type of offense, the games would have just felt differently in terms of bullpen management. And yeah, Saturday was bad when Max Schumann's pitching on the mound, position player.
Well, and so I'm watching the game yesterday with my dad. He's a Reds fan, and I turned it over to the U.S. Open for a quick second just to check on things over there, right? And all of a sudden he comes from down the hallway where he had on the TV down in his bedroom, and who's the Schumann guy? I'm like, what are you talking about? He goes like pinching for he's batting cleanup. I'm like, no, Spencer Jones is batting cleanup. I was like, no, this Schumann guy's batting cleanup. I'm like, so clearly they pinch hit for Jones because he can't hit lefties. And I'm sitting here at this point, and I don't want to make this the thing here again of whatever, but I'm just like sitting here going like, if your plan going into the game the way it was still at that point, at least in my mind, a view from the perspective of how I operate, I it's baffling to me that Spencer Jones is just on your active roster then at this point in that sense. If you're pinch hitting him for, and not a knock on Max, but you're pinching him for a utility guy who's batting 207 because you're afraid of the lefty matchup. I think we got to be asking different questions at that point then. So my 2 cents there, but yesterday was just such a mess, right? I don't think they anticipated Rodriguez only really going four. It ends up becoming like essentially just a full bullpen game at that point, right? Hill, Blackburn, Hedrick, Cruz, Duvall all pitch at that point. And look, it's kind of surprising to me not to do too much of the look at here for this week, but like I frankly am kind of surprised with no off day for 10 days. The Yankees were frankly kind of willing to burn through arms yesterday the way they did. frankly. I they like you said, you know, we had a position player pitching on Saturday. I don't think they probably maybe want to do that again on back-to-back days. Obviously, it was a tighter game yesterday, so it's very different. But like, I don't know. It's like one of those things where it's like, we got a little bit of head scratching going on here again in June. Like, here we go.
Yeah, I mean, I did like that they gave Garrett Cole an extra day. I thought Rodriguez, could have been better with his command, but overall, I mean, he kept him in the game. And again, the offense was a no-show, other than the Goldschmidt early home runs. So, I mean, I do agree with you. It does feel like a bad ending to what could have been a good week, but they have two teams this week that on paper have not been good, and Wednesday's going to be tough with Skubal on the mound, but I think they should have a winning week.
Maybe Scooble on the mound. I'm not insinuating anything there, but
Well, they can just change dugouts if they like.
that's true. We've seen that before in baseball plenty. So, um, did want to get your opinion on a couple things here before we look ahead here on the Yankees. I found it interesting that Escaro was the catcher sent down with Wells getting activated over the weekend, meaning Ali Sanchez stays up. Especially strange because Escaro seemed to have still bulk of the catching load going on, obviously, throughout all of this. Um, I don't want to read too much into this, but like, are the Yankees more or less just going with Wells? We'll just call it 6 out of every 7 games then behind the plate at this point. Like that kind of feels like what their plan might be.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think it's all weird because Aaron Boone always says like, "Oh, Austin Wells can hit lefties," and then he's in the lineup against lefties. But now Sanchez stays, so I don't know. It's going to be interesting to watch. But also, I don't know if you saw the note after the game last night that just either maybe even today. I mean, the roster moves haven't been announced yet, but Sanchez is going to go on paternity leave, and Ascar is going to come right back up.
This dude's got to have more frequent. I don't even know. They'd have to have charter flights from Scranton to LaGuardia, I guess. But
Yeah. So it's just a constant shuffle between catchers, and it's so glaring that, by the August 3rd deadline, there's going to be a different catcher on the team. I mean, all these catchers, I guess Sanchez has been okay. He's actually had more, I think the stat was like hits and RBIs than Austin Wells and Ascar combined at one point. But
mhm.
yeah, they have to do something big there at the deadline.
Yeah, and that will be a more on that as we get closer because one of the targets is now down with a concussion. So we'll see what happens there. Um, did we? I don't think we talked about last week because I think it happened after too. Now that I'm thinking about it, but the Stanton.
Setback.
I'm having a yeah. Thank you. I was having a brain fart there for whatever reason. Just I hate viewing it from this lens, but again, par for the course, um, kind of in a way.
While running
It's
the bases.
yeah. I mean, it sucks that we have to view it from that lens, but like, I can't say I'm surprised, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's definitely not surprising, and it's probably going to unfortunately happen more and more often. I mean, he's only getting older, and but the crazy thing is, though, he did start the season off so well with the bat, like he was really hitting, and it was kind of crazy to see the start he got off to. I feel like usually he gets off the slower starts. I mean, he's
Mhm.
had some bad Aprils, especially with the Yankees. So, I mean, I still would like to see him back. I mean, it's still a hole not having him there, but man, this guy cannot run to save his life. I mean, there's no way he was sprinting doing these base running drills. He's probably doing his normal little jog that everyone says he really can't run faster, and he still pulls something or aggravates something in his leg.
Yeah, which can't say. Like I said, can't say we're surprised at this point. Okay, more of an opinion question here before we get to the previous stuff I had because I was talking with a friend about this over the weekend too, and I didn't really think about it, but I or not so much think about it, but I don't think I had a reason to think about it until I was asked. But are we seeing with the offense in some ways a little bit of still like missing Judge a little bit, which I know is like a very obvious like yes in the overall sense. But I think over the weekend, and again, might be just really dissecting too much into 2 games, but like it's hard not to think about the impact Judge might have had in one of those games specifically, right? And you know, we're inching along closer to obviously getting closer to return date and stuff like that, but like I don't know. I do get worried in certain spots, right? The days where Bellinger can't carry all that load, or especially still in this case, like Ben Rice can't take all the load. Um, it's one of those like be nice to have Aaron Judge, in that spot. So, like I said, I don't know. Maybe I am overthinking again too much into what this weekend is, but to me, it's tough not to ignore still in some of these games where it's like be nice if Aaron Judge was kind of lingering in the shadows on deck in that spot.
I mean, yeah, for sure. And like there's like Paul Goldschmidt's obviously unbelievable right now, but you look at like Jazz and you still feel like Jazz can give you more. Bellinger, he has some hot streaks, but for whatever reason too, he doesn't hit well on the road. It's a Yankee Stadium type of thing for him. Like the OPS difference is kind of crazy. You look at like Ben Rice, I've noticed, especially over the last week, the Reds specifically. I mean, he did have an 0 for 5 game in there. I forgot which day that was. But they're pitching him differently because they don't need to pitch to him. Yes, he did homer over the weekend. But with Judge not being there, they can kind of just put him on and be like, all right, let's take our chances with the other guys. Um, that's kind of what I'm seeing. And then when you have a catcher that doesn't hit, and then you have McMahon and Volpe's in there, even though Volpe hasn't been that bad, but it's just like wow,
Well,
a lot of. I mean, you look. Last I knew, he was like 260. I mean, not
yeah,
horrible,
I'm not. I guess I didn't view that from. Obviously, I'm not viewing that from the
but he
average
keeps getting
standpoint.
thrown out on the bases. That's his
Yeah,
problem.
yeah, yeah. Which so far down the list for me this week, it didn't even make one of the main talking points. I was just like, here we go. So yeah, who knows? But yeah, like you mentioned, Kyle, this week for the Yankees, look, you have three at Detroit, three or four rather in Boston. Apologies. So on paper, good bounce back week potential here. Obviously, easier said than done, right? Got Cole going tonight against Framber, Rodon against Casey Mize tomorrow, and then on Wednesday we got Weathers and Scooble, like you mentioned. Yeah, I mean, for me, I feel confident saying 2 of 3 for sure against Detroit. Like you said, the Scooble thing on the back end is what worries me, um, in that sense. And then again, in Boston, we got more subtweeting going on and everything like that. So I would be very surprised. I'd be surprised in the traditional baseball sense. I'll put it to you that way if the Yankees don't win the 4-game series in Boston. That being said, Yankees enjoyed messing around with the Red Sox, so who knows what actually happens there. But everything from like I said, the true baseball side, I'm going to view it from that perspective because we're a few days out from that. Would be very surprised if the Yankees didn't get 3 of 4 at least from Boston.
Yeah, I say they'll I say they'll go 5-2 this week. Uh, remember they did sweep Boston in Boston already this season. I know that was back in April. That was, of course, with Aaron Judge and Giancarlo Stanton. But yeah, I mean, you look at the Red Sox, what, 13, 14 games under 500. It's
Yeah.
hard to believe. The Tigers have won 3 in a row. The walk-off win yesterday against the White Sox, swept the White Sox. Oh, wow. Rough week, rough couple of weeks for the White Sox all of a sudden. Or actually a rough week because they played the Yankees and then then the Tigers. But yeah, the AL is just very, very weak. Once again, you look at it and you see the Yankees at 46 wins, and then it's kind of crazy to think about.
Yeah, it's like the Yankees, the Rays, and then it's yeah, you got Cleveland at this point, and then Seattle. It's just like, yeah. I mean, who knows what we'll see from that standpoint, overall, but hey, who knows? We get to probably talk about that a little bit more next week. Before we go, want to make note as well, Rochester came up a game short in securing a playoff berth in the International League. Just couldn't get over the hump for Memphis. Memphis just, I think at one point they were tied during the week last week, and then Memphis got a win when Rochester lost. It was just like, well, it is what it is. But still, second half starts tomorrow for the AAA teams, and I would imagine Rochester's going to continue on that momentum. I know in years past there used to be a little bit of a bigger break right off the bat to start the second half. They've moved that now more towards when the All-Star game is for the major leagues. So I think it's a good thing that they're continuing kind of going right away with playing still and everything like that. And yeah, I mean, who knows? The part that's interesting, right, is like they don't even have to necessarily win the league in the second half. If Memphis wins again, they finish second, then it goes to Rochester. So obviously, I view from the perspective of like Rochester go out and win the second half because at that point records do matter. If you have the better record, you get to host a playoff series. Rochester has not been in the playoffs in the International League since 2003. Be a really great way to cap off the summer, obviously up here locally. But yeah, I just wanted to put a bow a little bit on that. I know we mentioned it last week and the past couple of weeks, really, and as this run to the first half came to an end for the AAA team. So kudos to Rochester. Syracuse hung tough for the most part, but kind of came up middle of the pack here recently. Was interesting too. Dick Scott, not too sure what's going on, but bench coach and former big leaguer John Dagowski was the acting manager for Syracuse the past few days. So don't know what's fully going on there. I haven't seen anything or heard anything, but something to probably keep a little bit of an eye on here, potentially as we get the second half of the minor league season going.
One quick thing on Rochester.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy the difference in the 2 days. I mean, entering Sunday, they're coming off a 14-1 win on Saturday against Toledo, and you're like, man, they just need to find a way to win, and then they go down 5-0, and it seemed like yesterday. I don't know about you, but I know we didn't watch the games and stuff, but like looking at the box score, falling behind that early just simply says that like they were feeling the pressure, they knew what was at stake. I mean, this team has been playing really, really good baseball, and I mean, I've looked at all the game logs. I don't remember them falling behind like that early and getting into trouble like this. I think it had to do with the playoff pressure, and I just think they wanted it, so bad, and they couldn't find a way to get it done.
Yeah, and I think a little bit too, it's tough because you can't plan this way in minor league baseball the way it operates now. Not a knock on anybody. I don't know if that's the starting pitcher I also would have gone with yesterday. Just looking at it.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's different in minor league baseball compared to the majors where you do have more of an option or ability to pick and choose when to start where potentially, but just one of those things where, like I said, you can't control it necessarily, but not who I would have gone with.
Yeah.
So, all right, we will exit the podcast then for this week on that note. We will be back again next Monday, going into Independence Day weekend. So baseball hot weekend overall there. So can't wait to get into that. We appreciate everybody for listening and tuning in this week, and find Concrete Jungle here on fingerlakes1.com, the FO1 YouTube channel, and the audio only edition of the podcast on all major podcasting platforms. Enjoy the week, everybody. We'll talk again next Monday.